You are listening to a Roamcast with Neil Kramer.
I don't want you with me, I don't want you following me. Understand this, anyone who does follow me, I'll kill them.
Maximum power.
Yeah, we don't want to do anything to scare your children. That's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to scare anybody.
The Phantom Plague fiasco has substantiated many of my oldest and worst fears about people. A person's attitude to COVID reflects their attitude to reality. They don't want to find out for themselves what it is. They want to be told what it is. They don't want to decide for themselves what to do about it. They want to be told what to do about it. They do not want to ascertain things for themselves. They don't want to draw conclusions by thinking independently and examining the actual objective reality of the situation. They don't want to get into that kind of thing. They want someone else to do that for them. Irrespective of the legitimacy or accuracy of such a deferral. They just want to be told what something is and what to do about it. COVID, reality, gender, medicine, science, government. Tell me what it is, and tell me what to do about it. A harder perception naturally follows on from this. COVID discloses stupidity. It shows who among us is averse to engaging truth. They don't want the pain or the disruption. They don't like the feeling of accountability. So it's just easier to go along with the big story. Pandemic, vaccines, stand together. Okay, I'm in. That's the mainstream mythology. To comply with it is just less trouble, regardless of the facts. Go with what's accepted, convenient, socially established. My choice of the word stupidity is not quite as mean as you might think. I'm not just using stupid in the place of foolish or idiotic or brainless or something. The meaning of the word, of course, is arrived at by examining its history. Every word has a history. In this case, we find the term stup, as in the Latin stupeo, stupidus, stupere. And in this formal sense, stupid means dazed, confounded, paralysed, numbed. For hundreds of years, stupidity was associated with the condition of being in a stupor, a person lacking in sense of feeling, the state of being inert, unconscious, insensate. Do you think it's fair if we propose that many people prefer to live in a stupor rather than deal with reality? Rich or poor, great or small, sophisticated or plain. Is it reasonable to suggest that many human beings regard a stupor as a secretly desirable state? Can intelligent people be stupid? Doctors, judges, scientists, governors, politicians, bankers. I think intelligent people can be particularly stupid. even though they're often socially endorsed as authorities and experts and successful, as Americans like to say, meaning money. And ostensibly intelligent people may indeed have acquired specialist knowledge and skills and achievements, recognition and so on, but still can be thoroughly stupid. By the way, our word stupid here, the pronunciation in England differs depending on where you're from. For many regional and northern accents like mine, you might hear it pronounced stupid, whereas for received pronunciation, mostly in southern England, it's stupid. And of course, if you're American, stupid. So if I'm speaking more casually with my friends, I'd say, that is stupid. Whereas when I'm speaking more formally, I'll say, stupid. Not really very important, this, but there we are. Mostly stupidity is a choice. People are not stupid by accident, or incapacity or affliction, mostly. They make themselves stupid through their own free will choices. They aim for it. They like it. Makes them feel safe, medicated, protected, unaccountable. And with COVID over the last year, to behold such unbridled, frolicking stupidity parading shamelessly in every nook and cranny of society has been really mind-blowing, truly. To witness so many people showing their true colours, their total contempt for truth. I still feel pretty much the same about COVID as I did in March 2020, when I wrote a little piece called Thoughts on Coronavirus. I would say that the coronavirus caper has been used as a weapon, a test, an instrument for control. It has a psychological component and a physical component. And I don't know the precise nature of the physical component, how harmless, how real it is. I don't know. I don't think many people do yet. Nonetheless, from the evidence I've seen, the facts demonstrate that when you adjust the CDC figures downwards to focus only on deaths from COVID-19, the numbers are in line with normal annual flu deaths. Nothing unusual. Deaths with COVID-19 via the virtually worthless testing protocols mean nothing other than selling a propagandized tale. So for myself, I see no need to take an experimental vaccine. It is experimental simply because no one knows the long-term effects of any of them for at least another 10 years. So before then, we are in an experimental phase. Logic tells us that. And besides, even vaccinated, you can still get COVID and still pass it on. And when you then factor in the grossly deceptive mass conditioning in support of vaccines from various scumbag people and institutions around the world, that tells me, personally, to instead cultivate my body's natural immune response and resilience via other, more natural, safe, proven means. And if the worst comes to the worst, there are still existing effective therapeutic treatments for COVID that don't experimentally mess around with my body and its intrinsic genetic building blocks. And if you have had the vaccine, don't despair altogether. All forms can be transcended. Lots of good people, for lots of complicated reasons, have taken weird, unknown, toxic crap into their bodies and overcome it by various natural and supernatural methods. Nothing on earth is irreparable in spiritual reality. But what I really want to talk about here is what the Phantom Plague actually shows us about people, about society, about us. As an adult, if you don't care about truth, you don't care about life. You're not honouring life. Someone might care about their own little patch of sky and ground and home, of course, what's immediately around them, their personal slice of life. But they don't care about life itself, what it's trying to show them. Natural, higher providence. They don't want to perceive it, or esteem it, or learn from it. Don't want to trouble themselves wondering what it's for. They care only for their own comfort, security, pleasure. It presents a strange paradox, all of this though, you know. to love and to loathe. I really do believe in the human spirit. I am routinely excited by the epic love we have been shown in being brought to life in this fearsome and beautiful spiritual laboratory, alive to be uplifted and go onward to a new world, divinely sanctioned, where our life really begins, should we prove ourselves trustworthy. People are good, but they are frightened. They're worried about reality. And so to dampen their distress, they choose to live in a high-functioning stupor, which serves as an emotional buffer against pain. A dirty medicine. A stupor that replaces objective reality with fiction. This is the practice of stupidity. Being purposefully unaware. Being constantly preoccupied with something else. Pretending everything is good and everyone is fine when mostly this is not true. Denial of wrongness. Replacing divinity with humanity. Conceding to false science, false education, false religion, false news, false history, false everything. To supplant real theology and real spiritual discipline with ceremonial religious drivel and embarrassing New Age fantasies. To live 24/7 as an escapist, even when alone, even in secret dreams, even on your deathbed. The cult of stupidity was born of empire, and they are always recruiting new acolytes. The young, the gullible, the inexperienced, the selfish, the bitter. That's a lot of people. Gently encouraging them into the casual habit of choosing evil. To reject reality is to flirt with evil, which invariably leads to getting into bed with it. Sad. Refusing spiritual fidelity. Proving untrustworthy before God. Humans are born good, equipped for goodness, made in the likeness of Elohim, given divine authority of choice, empowered to choose and personify with total liberty truthfulness. To embody falsehood is madness. Every thinking person I've talked to over the last 18 months, when reflecting upon the current state of the world, has essentially observed the same thing. An unprecedented mass abandonment of reason and common sense. Not only with respect to COVID, but also concerning massive international election fraud and the ubiquitous gender, race, class, identity politics super twaddle. In fact, socially, what we call wokeness today is a simplified version of critical theory. Not critical race theory, I don't mean that. Critical theory is something that arose from the so-called Frankfurt School and the Institute for Social Research back in about 1923, and then really got going in 1929, 1930. It is an empire think tank dogma that advocates modern democratic socialism to denounce morality, family, justice, history, independence, and personal accountability. That's not how it markets itself, of course, but that's what I see it is. It divides us against each other by identifying various false adversaries, seemingly responsible for the ills of society. Some groups are identified as victims, and others as perpetrators, with much ensuing division, animosity, and wild goose chasing. It distracts us from the actual enemy of empire itself, turning us everywhere else except toward the real culprits. and slowly, generationally, shifts society into financial and emotional dependence on the state. And the stroke of genius is, this turns people away from God. Madness indeed. You hear people say, don't you, the world's gone mad. And I understand that sentiment. But has the world gone mad? Or is it just people revealing their madness? Are people now simply nakedly parading what they had previously shrouded? Their love affair with illusion, their thirst for lies. The world is doing exactly what it's meant to do. It is giving ample and luxurious opportunities for us to grow spiritually, to love what is true, substantial, real, good, virtuous, to recognize our own errors, dysfunction, pains, imbalance, and to fess up and do something about it. I think the hardest part of seeing good people cease to care for the truth of reality is that it reaches into our own friends and family. To see them forsaking reason and independent thought is difficult. So we ask ourselves a basic question. Why does a person with a brain not use it? Because he is afraid of the results. Why does a person with the divinely inspired faculty to distinguish truth from falsehood, so essential to all physical, emotional and spiritual life, decide not to exercise this ability? Because he is afraid of the results. Ostensibly decent, ordinary, civilized people around the world tenaciously avoid inquiring into truthful and important matters because they are afraid of the results. They know instinctively that comprehending reality is disturbing. They also know that not only does one have to suffer, but one also becomes accountable, as we've talked about before here. Personal and moral propriety, intellectual and emotional integrity, energetic and spiritual responsibility. You are culpable. You are finally liable for your life choices inside and out. So people lie, thinking this will somehow exclude them. I didn't know. I just did my own thing. You can't judge me. They say at the end to the creator of the universe, who loved them so much that he offered them eternal existence in a divine realm where life truly begins, just so long as they demonstrated that they cared about truth and goodness and took responsibility for their thoughts and actions during the 100-year-long training session that was their earthly life. It is true that along with the responsibility to care what is real arrives also an abiding sadness, a burden. And this pain, this burden, is why so many people unthink themselves from reality and descend into various prefabricated imperial mythologies like liberalism, Marxism, humanism, social justice, climate change, cultural idolatry, etc. These detours allow the fantasist to feel like they are going somewhere, whilst simultaneously allowing them to go nowhere, believing they are doing something worthwhile, whilst actually pissing their life force down the grid. The gamble for the unreality cultist is this: can I hide within imperial mythologies, avoiding all serious, truthful, moral and spiritual responsibility, then die without God and without purpose, and therein successfully avoid being answerable for my actions for all time? Just die and slip away into silent nothingness, or else into some nirvanic heavenly soup of amnesty and bliss. And if so, then I can live selfishly and without liability. There's no judgment, no God. Nothing fundamentally matters. And even if there is a God, he's super tolerant and forgives everyone willy-nilly anyway, and so it's all good. I think that's what many people are secretly doing, betting on that outcome. There is, however, another chilling and terminal possibility for the gambler. There is a God, and he knows who you are, who we all are. Everyone will be judged wholly, expertly, immaculately, with perfect justness. What you did, what you thought, what you felt, what you said, how you behaved. When you were sorry, how you sought forgiveness, how you gave forgiveness, how you became humble, your kindness, your integrity, your effort. All of it matters. If you embodied goodness, listened to and acted upon the quiet voice of spirit inspiring you towards meaning and substance and goodness every day, then you will be sanctified, translated into your light body, and go on to the next world. If you conducted yourself improperly, buried everything, cared not a jot for the true things of life, and saw only your own pleasure, you will be condemned and destroyed forever. Not using your brain to discern true things for yourself is the worst gamble of all time. Some people, when they hear the word reality, just think that that means the place we're all in together, the big world we're all inhabiting, all walking around on the same material platform. We're all in reality. It's what we all see, like in some kind of revolting Starbucks or Fruit Loops or Coca-Cola or Nike or Netflix commercial. That is not what reality is. Reality is only what is real, the single objective reality of truthful manifestation. True, genuine, independent, actual. Not affected by your thoughts or feelings. It is quite perfectly and manifestly true, just the way it is, with or without you. Spiritual reality is the real world and its divine purpose. It is focusing on the underlying causes and teachings of life. To live in spiritual reality is to live as you are meant to. No play acting, no mythologizing, no escapes and garbage, no pipe dreams and lies. Just the real thing. To live well is to care about life, reality. Not a fictional political thing in someone's head. The authenticity of your contact with reality is critically important. You have to care. God made the earth to recruit for divine family. The earth is a place of teaching, testing, and overcoming. It is here we demonstrate our fidelity and trustworthiness. God did not create robots to behave in a certain pre-programmed way. He created natural humans with the same faculty as himself, free will, made in his image. And with that phenomenal power, we reveal our nature, who we really are. In this revelation, we show whether we truly care or not. Pouring emotion into something is not the same thing as caring. Lots of uncaring people spill their guts over all manner of things, but they don't really care about reality. They can't bring themselves to birth their own care, so they have someone else have it for them, a surrogate. And then they pour their emotions into that substitute, weeping and shouting and shaking. That's not care. Genuine care is an act of will. The sacrifice and consecration of your whole life, heart, mind, bones, spirit, soul, entrusted to God, total. When you accept the divine imperative to care about life, you love what is true. and you begin to instinctively gravitate to what is real and good. You can smell it, you can taste it. So you straighten what is crooked, you suffer. You untangle what is knotted, you suffer. You confess your forgeries and vices. You honour your vitality, love, wisdom, heritage. You watch, listen, learn, and think. The good news is you were born pre-qualified for divine family, salvation, transcendence, furtherance, real life outside of time and space. The bad news is you can throw it all away. The earth is in a condition of fallenness. The chief characteristics of this state, theologically speaking, are decay and impurity. They define how everything works. They determine the order of this phase of life. So let us consider them for a moment. First, decay. Everything in time ends. All things subject to entropy. All objects, large or small, natural or synthetic, new or ancient, they all vanish. Pine cones, cufflinks, needles and thread, chairs and tables, every car ever driven, as one drives past, every book ever written, every song ever performed, every painting ever painted, every child born, every house built, every drop of rain, everything, everyone, everywhere, all the things disappear. Secondly, impurity. All worldly things are impure. No system is separate from another. Everything contaminates everything else. People, objects, thoughts, places, events, feelings, all predisposed to distortion, both the physical and non-physical, all impure, people especially. We are prone to error, to duplicity, immorality, damage. We do it to ourselves, we do it to others, and they do it to us. Good people harbour perversions, cloak their criminality, take pride in their selfishness. Culture normalizes immorality. The untrue becomes fashionable and preferred. Reference COVID, identity politics, etc. The primary state of decay in itself is not evil. Only our dishonest reactions to it produce evil. So what is the metaphysical purpose of decay? What does it teach us? Temporality engenders corrosion. When you have time, you have disintegration. So, knowing this, when we gaze into the charred hollowness of a deteriorating world, we understand that we don't have much time. Everything is racing away. It only appears still, ageless and solid like a mountain, when you don't pay too much close attention. When you do look closely, it is all dissolving. So the contemplative learns to turn his mind to those things which are not of the world. He acknowledges the ramshackle and quietly derelict state of things, but is not hypnotized by it. The mind is trained to look upon what is unmanifest and abiding. The whole tone of a spiritual life is identified by the increasing withdrawal of one's attention away from things and towards meaning, away from form and towards value, away from selfish people and hectic places with all their ensuing murky dramas, and towards quiet, truthful observance. We are then no longer blithely resigned to the entrancing carnality of life. We look to what is behind it, to the foundations, to providence, meaning, edification, upliftment. We heed godly teaching. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh, and the desires of the eyes, and pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away, along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. Fallenness shows us what matters and what doesn't. If we acknowledge decay and impurity, contemplate their message, our discernment deepens. If we ignore them, our discernment wanes, and we drift. This fallen earth, whilst not our home, is where we are. Our earthly residence is best thought of as a vast and hallowed mystical college. We inhabit the classrooms, we walk the corridors, we sleep in the halls, we wander the grounds, and some areas are pleasing and some are not. But there is nowhere in the world that is not the college. There is nowhere else. We are students immersed in a holy curriculum. Each and every one of us, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. Due to the decay, we realise that we cannot make a lasting home in a world that is crumbling. And likewise, for good reason, we cannot find tranquillity in a land that is distinguished by its corruption. So how do we deal with fallenness? What is the way of wisdom here? To care, to think, to listen, to be humble, to reflect, but above all to care. Truly care, not just emote. To devote oneself to that which is not everyday objects and activities and places and people. Life is not all work and family, not all media and information, not all career and leisure. These are landmarks, but not it. Care enough to find a balance between the peace of your sanctuary and the dignity of your spiritual warfare. Embody humility and kindness. Personify strength and courage. When I've gone about such things in my own small way, I have seen one truthful thing that shines out. Fallenness compels transformation. The decay and the impurity encourage spiritual learning and truthful conduct. Transform or die. To avoid reality, to divert from natural higher meaning, and instead to sensualize your mind into the holographic clay of the world, is to announce to your Creator that you don't care. It is a living declaration that you're not interested in His human upliftment project. And in this way, millions of people have proudly estranged themselves from God altogether. This creates mental and emotional disorder. Not acknowledging the central presence of God in life, divinity in life, is not about a lack of faith or knowledge or practice. It is about a lack of care. When we do not reflect divinity within the modest thoughts and deeds of our own daily lives, we become fragmented and defeated. Our prior joyful respect and enjoyment of His natural law is replaced by conceit and degeneracy. The ultimate arrogance of thinking you can invent your own reality, your own rules, your own God.
music in your ear, that's music in your ear. Once I get hold of it, I suppose that's like smoking cigarettes. Once I get hold of it, that's a drug. You can't get rid of it. There's something about it, I don't know what it is, but you go anywhere for it. If I went somewhere where there was some bells, I'd go crazy, I know I should. Bells are life to me. I mean, that never seem a Sunday to me. If we don't hear the bells, that never seems Sunday, if you can't hear church bells going.
I hear a deep, sad undertone in bells, which calls the Middle Ages back to me. From Prime to Compline, the monastic hours echo in bells along the windy marsh and fade away.
The word suffering comes from the Latin suffero, from sub-fero. Sub, S-U-B, meaning under, beneath, close to, around. Fero, meaning to bear, to carry, to endure, to hold a weight. To suffer, therefore, means simply to be under a weight, to carry a weight. And if a person honestly looks into life and faces this frightening compound of separateness and decay and corruption, they will bear the load of this perception. They will suffer. However good, however wise, however blameless, suffering is certain. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. We see the sorrow, the cruelty, the ruin. Our hearts sink, our throats constrict, our guts twist. Young and old, we ache, we worry, we weep. So, what are we to do? What can be said and done that makes any of this navigable? Grace. Grace is an emanation, divine, that bequeaths regeneration and freedom. It is the seal of eternity. Grace requires a response. This heavenly broadcast of propitious inspiration requires an answer from us. To care about what is true in the world, to seek God, to overturn error and deception in ourselves, is to respond well to grace. When a person responds to divine grace, they turn towards life, into alliance. They go onward, which is precisely what everyone was born for. A choice, a decision. I am flawed, I am impure, I am damaged. Nonetheless, I can, with strong conviction, affirm that I care about life deeply. I care about what is just. I value honesty and integrity. I strive to embody goodness more, a little, every day. I require truth. I acknowledge my mistakes and seek forgiveness. Bit by bit I empty, repair, cleanse my vessel with help. It is important to understand human weakness, to seek the root of the problem rather than persecute the rotting leaf itself. Yet I must also acknowledge the dilemma, the frustration, the anger inside when I observe people's disdain for truth, their lies, their irresponsibility, their unkindness, their hypocrisy. My misanthropic magma flows. How can one turn this smouldering to good? Begin by differentiating between the wrongness and the wrongdoer, the sin and the sinner, the error and the person. Hate what is evil. Don't bother hating who has fallen under its spell. Not your concern to judge. You can never know. Love them by praying for mercy, wisdom, healing, honesty to be brought into their heart. And with such things, if they had them, they can have them by their own hand. They could turn their wrongness around swiftly. It happens. Rare, but it happens. Make no mistake, it is a malicious and cold-blooded spiritual crime when a person casually adopts deception as a way of life. It generates evil. It is taking pleasure in wickedness. To not care about what is real is to violate Earth's sacred teaching, to go directly against God's will. Not a good move. Outwardly, we all live a relatively small life. A few places, a few people, a few things. Most people spend a lot of time indoors, in rooms. A living room, a kitchen, an office, a bedroom, a bathroom, whatever. We do little things in those rooms. We read things, watch things, listen to things, talk about things, make things, eat things, fix things, clean things, discard things. That's what we do. And then, when we're not doing something, there is time for stillness, silence, reflection, alone. Wondering, picturing, thinking back, feeling, breathing, sleep. There is often a definite tone to phases in a person's life, a tone that comes upon them, partly through their own choices, partly through the actions of others, partly through higher ordination. In this way you will observe that some people are very lonely. Other people feel trapped. Some people long for a person, fantasize about a place, yearn for a way of life that is not happening. Other people are bored, jaded, discontented. Some people are sick, ailing and infirm. There are some people who rarely leave the house at all, and some who travel all over the place, meeting people, doing things a bit more than normal. But whichever kind of life we picture, our small lives have only 10 train tracks that we go around and around. Home, grocery store, work, do the dishes, brush your teeth, change a light bulb, go to sleep, wake up. The day is here again. A bit happy, a bit sad. Same for everyone. Within, though, each humble circle of life, regardless of style and variance, everything necessary for a complete and edifying spiritual education is 100% present. All arranged and available and designed by God just for you. Right before your eyes every single day. The divine syllabus expertly laid out alongside, between and around our train tracks of inexorable mundanity. I quite like doing the laundry. It brings me a strange, quiet satisfaction. We're blessed in our house to have one of those little utility rooms, laundry rooms, where you have a washer and a dryer and a little counter and sink and cupboards and everything. And it's quite nice in there. Restful, uncomplicated. Many creative, fruitful and significant things have occurred to me in that little room, which in itself is so nothing, so everyday, so ordinary, but somehow I love it. And why should these little routine places not form part of our spiritual landscape? Why not? And I know I have some fellow laundry room monastic devotees out there. You know who you are. The universal spiritual curriculum centres heavily on truth and goodness. We must acquaint ourselves with them, know them, practice them to the best of our ability. In our thoughts, deeds, feelings, words, demeanour, everything. What is genuine, what is honourable. And these big, magnificent things can be tested, refined within any simple average day. Cultivating a character and a heart of truth and goodness fashioned by these everyday little triggers. The questions, the quandaries, the problems that fall in our path. What should you do more of? What should you do less of? What about that horrible person? How best to handle them? What about that wonderful person? What to do with them? Why the horribleness? Why the wonderfulness? How did those things arise? What about your own dismal folly and hurtfulness? Do you want to be a better man, a better woman? Do you really care about divinity and want to learn about the kick-ass fantastic plans that involve you? Or in all honesty, not really. You're not bothered. What about all those people thinking COVID is real and vaccines are helpful? And all those folks confused about the gender? The millions who have been hoodwinked by empire to support preposterous social justice movements? What do you make of it? I know horrible and wonderful people in all camps. We can't just dismiss everything and everyone, nor should we just pathetically follow for fear of exile or conflict. And right now, COVID represents one of the biggest psyops in history. It certainly has a podium finish. COVID has shown us, has it not, just how many people don't care about what's true. And we have to decide what to do about that fact. You, dear listener, will no doubt use COVID to further sharpen your discernment, further educate yourself and strengthen your resolve against absurd satanic imperial falsehoods. You will perceive more about your fellow man and give what is due, withdraw what is not. Decent but steadfast, courteous but uncompromising, self-respect, self-discipline. Not everyone cares to make the necessary effort. Not everyone feels it's important to distinguish between good and evil, right and wrong. They may not even recognise that these things exist at all. And in so doing, they harm themselves and the people around them. Can this be reversed? Yes, a choice. But how much sweat do they put into contrition, humility, changing? How dedicated are they to loving truth? How dedicated are they? When your heart is on fire with truth, do you speak it? Do you show it? Do you live it? Do you know when to be bold? When to be polite? When to exercise restraint? When to shut your mouth? When to shout at the top of your voice? When to rip up the floorboards? Are you good at choosing between these modes of conduct? When, where, how, with whom? For the best, for everyone? We must ask ourselves, what can I do with today? What can I learn? Quality, not quantity. Depth, substance, essence. All our spiritual coursework is laid out before us every single day. Everything necessary, all there. And no one has any greater or lesser opportunity to access spiritual reality than anyone else. It is a matter of choice, effort, care. You might sometimes wonder if other people have it much easier or much worse than you. I don't think so. I have from time to time worked with some famous people you'd know, actors, musicians, things like that. And I can tell you that their life is small, They zip around a bit more. There's more photos and words about them than you and I. But they have the same challenges and loneliness and problems as anyone else. And their various luxuries and bits and pieces mean nothing in the end. The celebrity and fame didn't help in that respect. They didn't deliver a wealth of extra discernment or goodness or wisdom or love. It didn't provide those things. The ones who do well learn to humble themselves, refocus their attention on the small circle they had forgotten. And with appropriate care, they slowly find purpose in the day, and eventually the much prized sense of peace they often seek. The precious circle of your own life has it all, whoever you are. It is lunacy to neglect this circle and instead turn sort of pensively to the screen on our phones and laptops, to the chattering and rumours and shouting. What a waste. What a waste to throw life away like this. And truly very few items of news are important. Very few things outside your circle are relevant. Some, but not too many. And today, in the summer of 2021, I cannot identify a single news website or newspaper or broadcast that solidly, wisely, consistently is able to deliver real news. Not one. I see little scraps of things occasionally, fragments, traces, but very erratic and unreliable. For now, it seems, the time of news is finished. The old institutions have rotted away. There are always new possibilities, new channels for mature broadcasting, new opportunities for genuine journalism and reporting, but as yet, I don't think they've surfaced fully. Maybe they never will. Or maybe something phenomenal will happen that ushers in a new zest for what is real. Aside from oneself, we learn valuable things about the world from spending time with other people who are practiced in truthful living. Circles of life intersect. We do well when we care what is true, when we care what is good. It is in the graceful embodiment of these things that our seeking for and walking with God can be realized. We seek and walk at the same time. We examine reality and conduct ourselves graciously at the same time. We acknowledge our weakness and honour our power equally. You do not know what your life will be like tomorrow, for you are just a vapour that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Today, we must care. One question I've been asked many times is, when did I get serious about my spiritual path? Really devoted, focused, committed, no turning back sort of thing. The answer is when I was 26. And the circumstances are as follows. Like plenty of other people, I was always interested in the invisible world of spirit from childhood. I was interested in what stuff meant, even though no one else I knew showed any particular interest at all in such things. I felt that unseen forces shaped life. I knew it in my bones. And my mind was keen to learn and evidence how and why. So as a tween, as they say these days, somewhere between around the age of 9 and 12, I felt the reality of the supernatural. I understood nothing, of course, at that time, but I felt a giant providential, divine something present in life, and I knew it was important. But I was young, inexperienced, and my discernment was untrained. Plus, as you might imagine, I was given to all sorts of distractions, and around age 16, my attention drifted towards girls and booze and music and art and books, and then a few years later, the abysmal grind of 9-to-5 office life. First in graphics, then law, then software. It wasn't entirely terrible, but it was intensely grey. Outside of my job, I made time for studying and attended classes, inquired, investigated, read, wrote, and so forth. But nothing was truly devotional at that point. There was no path, no walk with God. Just a reservoir of accumulating potential. Hunger, zeal, some transformative adventure far away. But I didn't know what to do about it. Not yet. Then around age 26, something catastrophic happened to me. Something so painful that even today it's hard for me to think about. Even though it happens every day to people all over the world. My heart was broken by the ending of a relationship. Completely shattered at the loss of a very singular and special woman. But we were young and unaware of the extent of our prior emotional damage, scarred and distorted long before we'd ever met each other. And though we talked, of course, and thought and dreamt and wondered and made some sense of inner things, a lot of the darkness remained unilluminated and just silently raw to creeping erosion that eventually caught up with us. And certainly I was way too damaged to maturely help or heal or restore anything or anyone. I didn't quite know that then, but I see it now. And though she and I had shared lots of authentic, profound love and priceless, caring friendship, it all ended in a callous, rapid, ugly collapse. Mainly my fault. I walked. She walked. And suddenly everything was gone. And though looking back, the seeds of this breakdown were visible long ago, it was no less traumatizing when it arrived. Such a ignoble ending. You know, the one person I totally believed in and wanted everything with, she was now gone. Her beauty, her insight, her tenderness, her laughter, her inspiration, her fellowship, everything just gone. I had lost someone who could not be replaced. I was emotionally dislocated for a long time. I still held down a job, paid my bills, was clean and tidy and moved house and attended the odd social function and read books and whatnot. But inside, I was blank. If I heard a song, a love song on the radio, I had to turn it off and walk away. I couldn't stomach seeing people holding hands in the street. I loathed Christmas and New Year and bonfire night and birthdays even more than normal. The truth was, I couldn't laugh or weep. I couldn't feel warmth or gladness. No trust, no buoyancy, no aspiration. Nothing. Just hollowness. And I felt like a rusting machine, not a man. And I felt guilt, regret, shame, like I'd never done before. I lost the most precious person in my life at that time. I got it wrong. My mouth and heart and eyes were full of poison. And to make matters worse, I still loved her. It never stopped, even though I wanted it to. So I found myself in a desperate place. I sought no professional help, no medicine, no drugs or anything like that. I just looked into this blackness. I just suffered. And when I finally had the strength to think clearly again, which took years. I made it my business, above all else, to find out what role, if any, suffering has in spiritual reality. So I did. I rebuilt my perceptions from the ground up, and I vowed to myself that no brick of self, no thought or feeling, no idea or precept would be laid down unless it was true. No illusions, no projections, nothing but truth. And for such a vital undertaking, I realized no one alive could do this alone, not without divine help, grace, love, wisdom. It was an inherently supernatural operation. Not psychological, not philosophical, but spiritual. So every theory, every idea, every scrap of classical and esoteric theology was crash-tested, applied, tested again, assessed, reality-checked, verified, or it was thrown out. And that process got me serious about spiritual life. My old outer self was destroyed. My new inner self was born, which is the only element of a human being that can actually set foot on the path. So that was my mid to late 20s. I did not know that in time to come I would find the most profound, transformative, intense union in love. Deep intimacy, vivid fellowship, a spiritual fire, healing, igniting, purifying. I didn't know that. A love I could not have imagined. I was to be blessed. God did not forget my tears, my penitence. It took me a long time, but eventually I recognized truthfulness deepens love. The more truth, the more love. The more searing honesty a person embodies, the more love can flow, the deeper recesses it can reach, unite, enrich. For it is a supernatural regeneration. Love is wholly in the service of spiritual life. That's what it's for. A transmuting emanation from God. Renewing, bonding, purifying, connecting. So, as my heart was slowly reconstructed, shard by shard, it became new, humble, honest, fervent, capable of deeper and deeper love. Today, I propose that there can be no spiritual path without a destruction of self. Or to be more precise, what theology calls the old self or outer self. You can have spiritual curiosity without a path. You can have inquiry. You can maintain a healthy interest in spiritual matters, but no path. There are only two ways I know of to begin walking a genuine spiritual path. Firstly, through light, through a profound spiritual rebirth, nurtured in close, authentic spiritual society, and finally brought to concrescence in adulthood, a willful and solemn consecration. Secondly, through darkness, through being emotionally and mentally eviscerated. Loss, anguish, splintering. Both light and dark set the old self on fire, burn it. And when it has burned completely, what remains beneath the ashes is what is true, which will not be very much at first. The thing is, honestly, most people put the fire out as fast as possible. And the old self, slightly singed, just keeps on doing its old tricks, and goes on misperceiving, and projecting, and deceiving, and sheltering illusions, and all that. I tend to think that the former, more agreeable method of self-sacrifice is probably something from a bygone era, a prior age, when the old self was willingly subsumed within the godly endeavour of the spiritual body, the Great Commission, the family of spiritual people raising their children and young people in wellness and wisdom. Supernatural regeneration in spirit and flesh. A sombre, yet joyous devotion. Hallowed acknowledgement of divinity as the centre of life, rather than oneself. That is something very rare today. It is far more common in our time to see grief and devastation serve as the catalysts for resolute spiritual commitment and the attendant discovery of the path. Either way, light or dark, old self has got to go. For the gate is narrow, and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Roamcast. Neil Kramer loves you. You heard clips from the following. Dialogue from the British TV show, Bleak's 7. The song, Rubik, by Mosaic. Dialogue from the 1974 documentary, A Passion for Churches. The song, Running Away, by Vortex. Both shared under a Creative Commons license. If you liked any of those clips, support the artists and go buy their stuff. That's all for now. See you again soon. Until then, we wish you a beautiful day.